Little Yugi's Shining Sarcophagus series gets a retrain with some really powerful cards. The deck is revolving around this spell card known as Shining Sarcophagus, and we're going to break down everything you need to know about the archetype. It's really fun, incredibly powerful, and was secretly slept on in the TCG. It can make some waves in Master Duel. Let's go ahead and jump on in. So the Shining Sarcophagus strategy is based off of Yugi's cards, but they are retrained into Shining Sarcophagus monsters. They're pretty cool, and I'll be breaking down everything you need to know about the strategy, but it all revolves around Shining Sarcophagus. This card says cannot be destroyed by monster effects, and you can only use the following effects of Shining Sarcophagus once per turn. During your main phase, you can add one card that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand except itself, and if your opponent special summons a monster from the graveyard, you can discard one card to target one of those monsters and send it to the graveyard. Shining Sarcophagus is the center point for the entire deck, as it not only gets you all of the monsters that you need, it also gets you into some pretty powerful cards while serving as a piece of disruption. If it comes with all the support we have in the TCGs, Shining Sarc can be paired with Dark Magician for Big Cook. I can't wait to see somebody do that. That would be really cool. I would personally still play Shining Sarcophagus as a pure, even a Dogmatica deck, and the reason why I say this is because Shining Sarcophagus does not need its extra deck. It's actually beneficial not to use your extra deck for this strategy. Another thing to add on to this is that it has some big play potential, and the Dogmatica cards not only help you with the mitigation of your extra deck, they also can be pretty disruptive. But let's talk about the Shining Sarc cards. It all starts around this guy. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can increase this card's level, just like the Silent Swordsman before, right? And then when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a Shining Sarcophagus or a monster that mentions it, you can negate the activation and increase this card's level by 1. So this isn't the card that I was talking about when I said it revolves around this card. It's either this one, the other one, or the Gadget. We'll talk about all of them. But this card is pretty good because it does provide protection for your cards from targeting disruption and can increase its level and also increase attack. It's a little bit more about that later. Next is Silent Magician 0. If your opponent draws a card, you get to increase this level by the number drawn. So if your opponent activates a card like Pot of Extravagance, it immediately becomes 2,000 attack. Not necessarily something that's really huge, but not also something that's really bad. When your opponent activates a spell or effect while you control a Shining Sarcophagus, you can negate the activation and then increase this card's level by 1. Another thing that's really good about this is that it's a spell negation. So these cards are really solid. Silent Magician and Silent Swordsman 0 are both one-ofs inside of your deck, right? You play them, they're good, they provide some type of protection. The real big thing is that they're a level boost and they're attack boost. The card that actually is really important is a 3-of for the deck, right? Gadget Trio. Now, Gadget Trio says, if this card is normal summon or spell summon, it allows you to add Shining Sarcophagus or a spell trap that mentions it from your deck to your hand. If it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can set one Stronghold Hidden Fortress from your deck. Now, this is the card that I knew one of them was really good. And unfortunately, Stronghold to Hidden Fortress isn't a great card. This may seem okay, but it's not really that good. But the best thing about Gadget is that it gets you into your Shining Sarcophagus, which is really important. The last low-level Sarcophagus monster is Moremarshmallon. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, your opponent cannot target monsters for attacks except for this one, which is a little bit of an upgrade of Marshmallon, right? During your opponent's turn, if you control the Shining Sarcophagus, you can spell summon this card from your hand. It's just a kind of like a Gore's-like card. If this card is destroyed by card effect, you can spell summon one Moremarshmallon from your hand, deck, graveyard, or banishment and inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. This card actually might be good in Master Duel the more I think about it, because it's actually good against Tenpai Dragon, right? Well, no, because they can always just switch this card to attack and then just keep ramming into it, right? But it's the thought that counts that makes it good against Tenpai Dragon. But yeah, Moremarshmallon normally is not played in Sarcophagus decks, but if you guys decide to experiment with it, let me know your findings. I'm really interested. The other monsters are a little bit more powerful. They're higher tiered, but they require a little bit more as well. Archfiend's Advent says, while you control a Shining Sarcophagus, you can normal summon this card without tributing, so another good normal summon. Other monsters you control gain 500 attack during your turn only. If this card is normal or spell summon, you can target one monster your opponent controls and take control of it. but it cannot attack unless you control Shining Sarcophagus when this effect was activated. So a monster that can summon itself to the side of the field and turn a monster into a Change of Heart. This would be incredibly good if the deck had more access to extra deck monsters, but it's still a solid one-of inside of the deck that could take control of your opponent's best cards and use to do your bidding. Dark Magician, the Magicians of Black Magic. This says this card becomes Dark Magician while on the field, and then you can only use its effects once per turn. If Shining Sarcophagus is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and a level 5 or higher monster is on the field, you can special summon this card. Then you can set one spell or trap card that mentions Dark Magician. Pretty good card. Now, the Dark Magician strategy could be incorporated inside of this deck. You can just straight up make a Dark Magician Sarcophagus deck, like what Berserker is suggesting, or you could just use Dark Magician cards. Some of the cards are just really good and decent as generic counterparts as long as you control Dark Magician, which just so happens to be this card. Next is Gandora, and this is the strongest card for the deck right now. It says gains 300 attack for each banished card. You can only use the effect of Gandora G-Dragon once per turn. If you control a Shining Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card. You can pay half your life points to destroy as many other cards as possible. And if you do, banish them. Then special summon level 7 or lower monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck and increase its level by the number of cards destroyed by the effect. Next is going to be Future Silence. Here's where we start to get into the spell cards. This card says, add one monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand. Then if you activated this card during the battle phase while you control a Shining Sarcophagus, each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand. This card is reminiscent of Card of Sanctity for the anime, but also provides a way for you to search Gadget Trio, which searches out Shining Sarcophagus. Turn Silence says, target one face-up monster on the field, increase its level by 3. Then if you activated this card in response to your opponent's monster effect activation, while you control a Shining Sarcophagus and a card that mentions it, negate that opponent's effect. During damage calculation, if your monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus battles, you can banish this card from your graveyard in the battle phase. Hey, right there. This card is like a 3-of because it is a good counter against Tenpai Dragon, but also another cool thing is that it is a negation card and increases the levels of your magician monsters. Pretty damn good, guys. I think that this is the counter that we needed. This could be a potentially strong Yu-Gi-Oh deck for Master Duel. Next is Ties That Bind. It says if you control a Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it, special summon up to 2 level 4 or lower monsters with different names that mention Shining Sarcophagus from your hand or deck. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck. You would have guessed the reason why I kept saying that extra deck is useless, because this is your most important card. Granted, there are going to be times where you can summon from your extra deck, which means you should take advantage, but this card being able to special summon Silent Magician 0, Silent Swordsman 0, as well as Gadget Trio to your side of the field is huge for the deck. You should be looking at all opportunities to be able to use this card and summon your monsters. The last card that I want to talk to you guys about is Dark Magic Mirror Force. It says when an opponent's monster declares an attack, or an opponent's monster effect is activated that would destroy monsters on the field, while you control a Shining Sarcophagus on the field. Destroy as many attack position monsters your opponent controls as possible. And then if you control a Dark Magician, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. Also, for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, the first time each monster you control that mentions Shining Sarcophagus will be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not destroyed. That's a pretty decent card. A lot of times players don't play any copies of this card, but if you wanted to be cool and played Mirror Force inside of Yugi's deck, you definitely can. These retrains for the deck is definitely welcome, but what exactly would a real deck look like? A test version, if you will. This is a very, very basic starting build that you guys can use for your Master Duel deck. I want to point out, just like with any of these videos, Master Duel is a little bit different than the TCG, so you don't necessarily know what would be the go-to build. I decided to play Dark Magic Mirror Force out of Copium because Secrets of the Dark Magic doesn't necessarily get there anymore. You can't summon Red Eye's Dark Dragoon in this deck because it's banned. But the best thing about this deck is that it doesn't need the graveyard, so Dimension Shifter's pretty good. You can increase the numbers of your Silent Magician 0 and your Silent Swordsman 0 if you really wanted to, but overall, this is close to what I would probably be starting off with on Master Duel and going from there. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any videos with this deck, I can't wait to see it. Go ahead and let me know down below in the comment section, and I can't wait to see what you have.